So now I'm going to start the official interview, right? Moving on. So I am Maria Emery. I am representing the Wright State Veterans Voices Project. I am interviewing Jose Monegro on Friday at noon, October 13th, 2017, at Wright State University's Pathfinder Lounge. This is a live interview, and First Sergeant Monegro and I served together here at Wright State University's Army ROTC program. So go ahead and tell me your full name.
My name is First Sergeant Jose Ramon Monegro.
Your date of birth?
14 February 1969.
Your date of service?
I joined the Army on 1 February 1989. It has been such a long time. And I retired 31st of December of 2013.
The highest rank you've obtained?
My highest rank was First Sergeant.
Tell me a little bit about the early days of your service. When did you join?
When I joined the military, I was living in New York City. I lived in New York for 5 years before I joined. Prior to that, I migrated to the United States at the age of 14 from the Dominican Republic. From there, I got to the U.S., to New York, in 1983, where I attended 1 year of middle school and 4 years of high school. Graduated from George Washington High School in New York City. Then I decided to attend college, City College of New York. But when I got there, it looked to me that I was wasting my time because of the language barrier. I spent there about 1.5 years, and I probably accumulated 3 credit hours. So once I saw that, I knew that I had to do something else. So I put my education on hold for a while, and I was interested in the military. So one day I just walked into the recruiting station, and I told the recruiter that I wanted to join in. So they tested me, my physical, and next thing you know, I was going to Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Why? How did you pick which component you went into?
To tell you the truth, I didn't know that much about the military here in the United States. So I was not aware about the differences between the Air Force, the Marine, the Army. I just knew that it was the military. So I just selected the first recruit I saw. That's the first office that I went into.
What year was that again?
That was when I walked into the recruiting station. It was in September 1988. Then I shipped out 1 February 1989.
How did you select your MOS? What is your MOS?
My MOS was 13 Bravo, which is field artillery. I selected it because they showed me this video with these tanks making a lot of noises, and I liked it. So that's what I told the recruiter. That's what I want to do. And from there on, I got hooked up into the field artillery.
So what did you first think when let's say when you arrived and first got off the bus at basic training? To me, it was not that, because I like to do my research, even though my earliest age, always, if I wanted to do something, I did some research on it. So I found out, how basic training was supposed to be. And I had my mind set that, I was going to get yelled at, and everything was going to be just the system was set up like that. So if I prepare myself to deal with that, then I will be okay. So it was not that hard for me, but I saw numerous individuals that
I had a hard time there. The only thing that was hard for me was because of my language barrier. I couldn't communicate effectively with the drill sergeant. So there were a time that what I wanted to say, it didn't convert what exactly I wanted to say. So I got in trouble a couple of times for that.
Give us an example of that.
Well, in basic training, sometimes some individual, they give you some name like mouse, or if you work for the drill sergeant more than normal. I'm always doing stuff even though people don't tell me to do. That's how I got where I am right now as a first sergeant, because I don't wait for nobody to tell me, what needs to be done. I just do it. And it was like that in basic training. So they saw that as me trying to be in the good side of the drill sergeant, and I kept, try to explain to them, no, that is not what I'm trying to do. It is just that's my personality, and they just couldn't understand it. So.
Do you remember your drill sergeants?
Yes, if I see them, I remember. I'm pretty bad with names, but I remembered one of them. His last name was Stewart, and I met him like 10 years after basic training at Fort Bragg, when I was stationed at Fort Bragg, and we were doing a jump, and he was one of my jump master, and he recognized me. And I don't know how, but he recognized immediately, and I recognized him. So, very interesting.
What was your first duty station?
My first duty station, right after basic training, I got assigned to Fort Carson, Colorado. But we only stayed there because it was a cohort unit. During that time, many units were a designated cohort unit, meaning that they deployed together to different countries. So my first assignment was an assignment to a cohort unit. So we stayed at Fort Carson for about 9 months. There was a lot of us from basic training that got stationed there, assigned there. One of them was one of my best friends, Milton Montes, a Puerto Rican, and we all stayed together for about 3 assignments. From Fort Carson, Colorado, we trained there for about 9 months, and we got deployed to Korea as a whole unit.
So being in Colorado, was that the first time you'd been that far out west?
Yes, and it was interesting because being that far out made it hard for me to come back to New York, especially during the Thanksgiving holiday. That was one of my first experience trying to come back from Colorado all the way to New York, and that was my first time also trying to catch a hop. Hop is one of those planes that normally go from Air Force Base to Air Force bases for free, but you got to have a lot of time. And I got stuck in Illinois during that that Thanksgiving holiday, and I couldn't get home on time, so I decided to take a Greyhound bus. But being new to the system, I bought the wrong ticket, so I bought a ticket that the bus will stop in pretty much every little town throughout from Illinois all the way down to New York. Luckily, I got home at midnight on that Thursday, Thanksgiving, so the turkey was still warm.
What did you miss the most from home?
Family, but and I go back there almost every time I get a chance. My family's pretty close, so.
What about the food? What did you think of your new diet when you first joined the Army?
That too, especially my mom cooking. But I don't normally eat that much, and so. But in basic training, that's one of the things that kind of bothered me a little, was because you have to eat the breakfast, the lunch, and the dinner, and I don't normally eat breakfast. So all I did was just some cereals and some milk, which still will upset my stomach because I was not used to it.
Now, tell me, after Colorado and after, what did you do in Korea?
Korea, when I got to Korea, I was a driver for one of those houses. They call them tank, but we call them housers, the field artillery pieces. I was a driver for one of those housers, and we got stationed in Korea. I had to stay in Korea for 15 months, because by then it was 1990, 1991, and the Gulf War was going on. So we got stopped. There was no PCS or anything like that, and I was about to PCS when the war started. So I had to stay there for 15 months instead of 12.
Did you guys train most of the time there?
Yes, we had to train and be ready because nobody knew what North Korea would have done. Probably take advantage of what was going on in Saudi.
So you were the driver. How many other team members did you have?
A crew for a house normally consists from 9 to 12 personnel. You got the driver, you got the gunner. You start out with a session chief, which is an E6. Then you got a sergeant, which is the gunner. Then the assistant gunner, which is another sergeant. Then you have the driver, the loader, the individual that fired the gun, and each team or each section have 2 vehicles, one that carry the ammunition and one that actually shoot the rounds. Halfway through Korea, I became the guy, the number 1 man. We call it the individual that shoot the bullet itself. So we have to load it. That's when I became a little, stronger, because each bullet weighed 105 pounds, and you have to lift it from the ground all the way to the weapon rack. And if you have multiple rounds missions, then you got to be able to shoot it pretty fast and lift those 105 pounds round off the ground pretty quickly. So.
What was your most memorable experience from Korea?
It was when I was stationed close to the DMZ. We had these bunkers, and every bunker has one of those weapons pointing towards north. And almost every 2 hours we have drills. So we will be inside the dining facility or sleeping, and when the alarm goes off, we just got to run down. Doesn't matter what you got on. It's just us men in there. There's no female. There were no female on the field artillery there, so it doesn't matter what you were on. Just go down to the weapon and be ready to shoot it.
What about after Korea? Where did you go?
After Korea, I went down to Fort Benning, Georgia, to do pretty much the same thing.
What positions did you have there?
Because, like I said before, I like to do stuff without people telling me if I knew it had to be done. Did it. So I went through the rank pretty fast. I became a sergeant in about 3 years. I some college credit, and I took some corresponding courses through the Navy, the Marine, the Army. So I pretty much maxed out on points for my promotion, and expert on weapons and awards and all that. So I got promoted pretty fast to sergeant. So I was a gunner and assistant gunner for about 6 months. And as soon as I became eligible for promotion to a staff sergeant, they sent me to the board, and about 9 months later, I was promoted to a staff sergeant.
What year was that?
That was in 1993.
What other military schools had you gone to by that point?
Military school, I went to airborne school during that time when I was stationed at Fort Benning, since the school was there at Fort Benning. And they used to call it the PLDC, which is the Primary Leadership Development Course, which is the first military course that you have to have before you become a sergeant.
What did you do after Fort Benning?
After Fort Benning, I got promoted to a staff sergeant, and I went down to Korea again. I got assigned to Korea again.
What did you do after that?
From Korea, I decided to go and ask to see if I could go down to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And I was assigned to 2nd Battalion, 319 Field Artillery, Airborne. And I stayed there for about 2 years. So,
what did you do after that?
From Fort Bragg, North Carolina, I could have stayed there longer, but at that time, my size was not. It was difficult for me because being a field artilleryman, once you become a staff sergeant or a sergeant first class, when you jump out of the airplanes, and you got to carry your equipment plus your weapon. In addition, once you become a sergeant first class, you got to jump with this. We call it an aiming circle. So, and it weighted so much that my back was not having it. So I had to call DA, Department of the Army, and ask them to see if I can just do something else, because I just couldn't. I knew my back was going to give up anytime. So I decided to go ahead and ask them to assign me as a recruiter, which they did, and I didn't know that at that time, during my transition, that was about 7 years into the military, I got selected for Sergeant First Class. Then I got assigned as a recruiter. And I got assigned exactly the same recruiting station that I signed up from. That's where I got assigned, New York City, 183rd in St. Nicholas.
Now, before that, before you went back to New York, did you have a lot of peers or a lot of other soldiers that were from the Dominican Republic?
No, not a single one.
Wow.
Not a single one. Most of my peers was either from Puerto Rico and other Latin American country.
Okay.
Not a single one. Well, no, I'll take that back. I have one. Yes, ma'am, I have one.
So how was it going back home? Tell us about that.
It was something that I always wanted. And it made it so much easier for me, especially because I don't talk a lot, and to be a recruiter, you got to be able to talk to people a lot. And so I had a hard time doing my time as a recruiter. But what made it easier was I knew the people there, and I can talk to them, I can relate to them, and that's how I made most of my missions. So I was a successful recruiter. I got my gold badge and everything, and it was because of that. When I was there, one thing that I liked was, or I was surprised of, was that every recruiter is assigned a school, a high school, that you go there and visit. And the school that I got assigned was George Washington High School, the same high school that I graduated from. And when I went there for the first time, the recruiter that I was replacing told me that that there's a guidance counselor. We got to talk to the guidance counselor. They're the one that provides you the letter from the seniors telling you that, yeah, this individual is getting ready to graduate. He meet all the requirements to enlist. But this, my replacement, or the individual that I was replacing, told me that the guidance counselor there at George Washington High School was not very supportive of the military. So we went there, and I don't know what it was, but it was the same guidance counselor that I had before. The same guidance counselor, Ms. Fox. And I went there, and she recognized me immediately, and I recognized her. And so we started talking, and she told me why she's opposed to the military. And I talked to her, and I said, look, I know you think that, but look at me. And when I was here, you guided me to go to college, and I went to college, and I went there for a year and a half. But look where I'm at right now. So it is not college and the military. They are, it is, not everyone is cut out to go to college straight out. So it's not, the military is not as bad as you think, and because look at me, I'm back over here trying to, and I have been successful so far. So she changed her mind after we had a little talk.
That's good. Tell me about your deployments.
My deployments, I had multiple deployments. Some of them I deployed when I was at Fort Benning in Georgia. We deployed for about a month down to Kuwait because something was happening there. Then we came back. Then deployed down to Kosovo from Germany. My combat tour, my first combat tour was like the second cycle after the invasion of Iraq. So I deployed to Iraq in 2004. I cannot recall the exact date, but 2004, 2003, 2004 was my first deployment to Iraq. We deployed to a little base called, little town called Beiji, down north of Iraq, and we stayed there for about a year. The interesting thing about my first deployment was I was a platoon sergeant by then, and we were a field artillery unit. So when the mission came, it was not for a field artillery unit, it was for an infantry unit. So we had to train as an infantry platoon in Germany. I was stationed in Germany back then. So we trained for about 6 months on how to become infantrymen, and that's what we did the whole year there. My second deployment was to Afghanistan. By then I was a master sergeant, and I was in charge of the operations center as a battalion operation sergeant. We deployed to a little base called Kalagush, which is all the way north of in Afghanistan, and I was there for about a year.
Let's go back a little bit to Kosovo. Tell me a little bit more about your time there. What did you guys do?
Kosovo, normally our deployment was 6 months to Kosovo. So we deployed from Germany. Again, I was a platoon sergeant at that time, and our mission, we have multiple missions. Being a field artillery unit, one platoon will go ahead and were designated to be a support platoon. So if something happened, they can support us with indirect fire. My platoon were designated as a infantry platoon. So we got assigned to this little base close to the border, and we had to do patrol. Some of the patrol were in a joint patrol with the Russian, close to the border to try to stop trafficking through the mountain. That was a very interesting experience because it is just going up the mountain and down the mountain. It was a lot of fun. And most of the patrol were 4 hours long. So we go out, come back, and go out again 4 hours later.
What about in Iraq? What was one of your most memorable experiences or something that stands out?
In Iraq, well, one of the most day that and I was the other day that we lost, that I lost my doc, my assistant, which is we call him my gunnery sergeant, and my FTC chief back then. They were part of another platoon, but we were supporting them. They got hit with the rocket grenade, and we lost all three of them pretty much at the same time. April 4th, 2004. That would be the most memorable day for me in Iraq.
What about in Afghanistan? Is there any memory or something that stands out from that experience?
Afghanistan, because I was the operation sergeant, I was pretty much in the talk most of the time. I know when I had a chance to go out, one of the mission that we were assigned to was far down north, and we had to stay there for a couple of days. We had to, and this was a joint mission with the Afghanistan Special Forces. The road that we have to travel was, I would not get you. I mean, it was the Humvee. It was just a cliff all the way through the mountain. We were attacked there, and we had to leave one of the Humvee there, and a helicopter had to come back in because it was a third Humvee that got hit, and the last Humvee was still back there, and we couldn't exit there. Once we secure the area, one of the helicopters had to come back and pick up the last Humvee because it was stuck. There was no way to go around it. But overall, I think my experience in Afghanistan was not as bad as most had experienced.
What about working with you said you worked with the Special Forces, with the Afghani Special Forces. What was it like working with them?
Those Afghanistan Special Forces that I worked with, they were professional. Because most of them were there as operation, so they understood how we worked, and it looks like they had been working with our special forces for a long time. Just the one that I saw during that mission. So.
What about when you came back from Afghanistan? What was it like, or from any of the deployments? What was it like coming back home?
Coming back home from Iraq was the most difficult one. especially when I was there, everything that we saw on the road, it was a danger. We drove right in the middle of the road, pretty much all the time. And one of the experiences that I had in Iraq is I still try to drive years now I still try to drive as far away from any trash or anything like that. If I see a sound the same way. I remember this mission that we had to do at night, and I keep telling my my friends and my family that that I almost, out of my 9 lives, I still probably got 5 left. Because my first time that I know of something, it was either there with us, with my platoon, or something happened. We were coming from a patrol during the night, and at night, with night vision goggles, and we were going through this narrow road, and we saw trash on the left, on the right. So we drove right through the middle of it, and we decided to park our vehicle a couple of meters down the road. 5 minutes later, this truck with some fuel in the back, just one driver, one young man, Iraqi young man, he drove through there, the same road that we just drove through, and one of the tank mine, hit one of the tank mine that was on the side of the road, and just blew up the whole tank. His body was just, disintegrating. Only parts of his body was there when we went back to see what happened. So that day, it was just me thinking that could have been us. That could have been us. We were lucky that day.
So what did you do when you came back from Afghanistan? Where were you stationed at?
When I got back from Afghanistan,
were you at Fort Knox at one point?
Yes, ma'am. I was. I'm trying to. We deployed to Afghanistan from Fort. Texas.
Fort Hood?
Fort Hood. Yes, ma'am. From Fort Hood. When I was, before then, I was a first sergeant out of from a basic training unit. Well, when I left Germany, my deployment from Iraq, I got promoted to E8, and I got assigned as a first sergeant for basic training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And I did that for 2 years. And after that, then I asked the Department of the Army to send me to another unit, so they decided to send me down to Fort Hood. And at Fort Hood, that unit was being rebuilt from the ground up. So we had to pretty much get all the equipment, new soldiers, everything from the ground up. There was nothing there. Billets, everything. So we did that for a whole year. Me as the operations sergeant and Major Conley, one of the best officers after you that I have served with. Of course. So me and him, we pretty much built the whole battalion. Then for a whole year, and after a whole year, we were deployed to Afghanistan. When we got back, I was the whole unit we just came together for one deployment, and after that, they just sent everybody all over the place. The core of the unit got sent down to Fort Knox, Kentucky, and I was ready to retire at that time when I got back from Afghanistan. And my sergeant major, the sergeant major that I was going to take over here at Fort Knox, knew the sergeant major that I just deployed with, and he talked about me and he said, you know, I want him. So he talked me into it. He said, hey, come down here to Fort Knox for a year and help me rebuild the unit, because it was another unit rebuild down at Fort Knox. So I said, okay, I'll do it for a year. So I came down to Fort Knox for a year and helped this command team rebuild the unit again. I stayed there for about 2 years before they deployed. And after that, that's when I called D8 again and said, hey, I'm getting ready to retire, you know, where can you send me? And my friend talked me into staying a little longer. And that's when I say, okay, well, you know, where can you send me? And I said, well, I can send you down to teach at one of the university. And I said, oh, to teach, huh? So, okay, tell me more about it. And that's when I got assigned here to Wright State.
So what was your most memorable experience about Wright State?
Wright State, so many. I believe is the concept of the student themselves not being, you know, liable, or they can do pretty much if they want to do it. You just tell them, you teach what you're supposed to teach, and if they want to learn it, they learn it. Not like high school that, you know, you got to make sure they got it. Here it was, but when dealing with the military portion of it, it was going down for that march that we took that family member.
The Mountain Men Memorial March.
Yes, that was an experience that I will always remember. Seeing those family members, how meaningful that part is for them, and it happened every year. To keep the memories alive of their loved one.
Mm-hmm. So you retired out of your assignment at Wright State?
Yes, ma'am. So after almost 25 years, about a month short, I decided to retire, and I decided to make Dayton, Ohio, my new hometown. I had so many, I don't know, every time somebody asks me, so where are you from? And I said, well, exactly, can you clarify exactly what you mean? Because I can say, like, from New York, I'm from the Dominican Republic, I'm from Dayton. So I can say I'm from multiple places. Even though every time somebody asks me, where are you from? I keep saying New York, but I only lived in New York for 5 years. So after my retirement, I didn't do anything for about 6 months. Then my brigade at Fort Knox, Mr. Dawson, he called me and asked me if I wanted to teach junior ROTC at one of the high school. And I said, well, I'm enjoying my retirement right now. I'm not doing anything. So, but I gave it a try, and so I tried, and I did it for 2 years, and it was a very enjoyable experience.
So now, looking back at your experiences, what message do you want to give future generations?
Um, I think one message that I want to convert to the future generation is if they had a chance, if they have a chance to serve their country, to go ahead and do it, especially for the Hispanic community. Even though the climate, the atmosphere right now is we have a divided country. In the military, it's not like that. It's not like that, and you will find it. You will find that everyone treats you with dignity and respect, and you will gain a whole new view of the world. Even now, I have brothers and sisters that we chat through Facebook, through and even though they have different view of what's going on, we always talk to each other with dignity and respect. It doesn't matter what political affiliation you have. And once you learn that, you will carry it throughout your life. And you only gain that through the military. It should not be like that, because the value that the military teach you, they are pretty much human value. So it's just a matter of, you taking them and implementing them. So that's my message to the young generation. If they had a chance to join the military, do it. It's going to be hard at first, but nothing is easy. In the long run, you will have better appreciation for everyone.
Cool. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, man.